Well, the regionals in China was very interesting to be able to see. 512 players were able to be accepted with over 5,000 people trying to go to this tournament. So, what's this meta looking like? Who ended up winning the tournament? And what can you expect in the future with this exciting time as Riftbound gets ever closer to being released in America and the rest of the world? All that and more starting right now. So yeah, here's the thing. It kind of sucks that China managed to go ahead and get the game before us, but I mean, luckily we still have a lot of tournaments and things that are happening virtually on simulators and whatnot, so that we are able to go ahead and get some things going. But still, it really is sad because, man, playing a game in paper instead of over the computer is just so much better. And there's a lot of different dynamics that can even be different from something you might not see in a virtual situation that you might be in a real paper situation. So kind of annoying, but that's how it is. Anyway, with that being said, though, we had some really interesting statistics here to go over. First and foremost, I am really surprised and almost a little saddened by the fact that Set was almost nowhere to be found. Now, people were even playing like a Misfortune a little bit more than Set, who I thought was actually a little bit more consistent and better of a legend to be able to play in this current meta. So interesting to be able to see, but also not necessarily a whole lot that made it into day two, even if there were some that managed to show up in the regional tournament themselves. So fun to see, interesting to be able to see, and I'm curious on how that is going to continue to develop as things go. Also, as well, not necessarily a whole lot of Darius as well. So, I mean, these top decks are going to be really interesting to take a look at. So these are the numbers and statistics that have been brought to the regionals here. And it is rather interesting to be able to see. First and foremost, I want us to go ahead and take a look at Master Yi. Now, we have seen that he is going to be probably the most represented legend here on the China side. It's going to be interesting to see how that ends up going out here on the American side. We have seen the climb of Master Yi here in the tournaments that we've been able to see. The Rift Lab clashes, or the Rift Lab trial that we had a couple of weeks ago, had a really big showing of Master Yi, but that was also met with Isa and Set as well. Pretty even distributing right there in representation. So fun to be able to see with that. But still, even more so, one of the more surprising things, and something that I've noticed as well, Chemo at 5.1%, 26 of the decks ended up going ahead and being Chemo represented, as well as Misfortune. Now that is a little baffling as well, because I haven't necessarily seen a whole lot of Misfortune in the trials that I've been able to cast, in the clashes I've been able to cast and things of that nature. No Misfortune whatsoever. We've even seen things like Lee Sin and things of that nature. And I wasn't even necessarily a whole Chemo believer, but I mean, we got a video coming out tomorrow breaking down some really exciting decks, one of them being a Chemo from the Rift Lab clashes that I was able to cast and be a part of there. So really interesting stuff to be able to see. But first and foremost, I gotta say, these day one statistics are very interesting, especially even the the Jinx here as well, being very represented with 23 decks, all things considered. And so with that being said, the top 64 is really interesting because these are the people who were able to make day two out of the 512. So just like we said right here, top 64. There we go. Anyway, imagine my thumb pointed there correctly. And this is rather interesting because these are also the percentages that ended up making it. Now, of course, with Master Yi, most represented, probably going to be the most that make it into day two. So a 42% there, right? And rightfully so. I mean, and it is just a very consistent, very powerful deck. Very tough to be able to get over in a lot of cases. Now, of course, the Isa deck, second most represented, and the one that was actually able to take the tournament. And so really great job right there, able to do so. Ended up actually handling Master Yi pretty handedly, had the correct answers, and we'll go ahead and take a look at that gameplay a little bit later in the video. Victor was a really interesting one as well, because especially if you look at day one to day two, the numbers there are rather interesting as well. And it's really cool also to even see like an Annie be able to make day two. Now, of course, in this case, not necessarily a whole lot that was able to be done there, but also 3 Darius decks. So while it wasn't necessarily as well represented, Darius can be almost a more aggressive than a more aggressive Victor deck, if you will, in this case. But what it really hangs on is that it can go ahead and find its baited hook, because Victor is going to be a little bit more consistent in the fact that its legend ability can create a token for one every single turn, and that one might can really make a big difference, especially as you go into the late game and you're trying to get things going with the like Thousand Tail Watcher, or even better, the Grand Stratagem to be able to close out the game. Whereas Darius kind of doesn't necessarily have that unless you can really start recycling and going wide with the baited hook to be able to find a lot of the Vanguard captains and things that you need to be able to go extremely wide on your board to then dominate. And of course, you've got things like Cleave and other advantages that you can go ahead and use with Darius. So really cool. They had less than 23 decks as the Darius at least, and was still able to go ahead and make 3 day 2. So a really great job right there. And then also Miss Fortune even able to get 3 in. And I'm really curious. I wish I saw how many of like the Aries and the Dariuses and whatnot, the Annies that actually showed up. My guess is, right, probably less than 10, maybe around. I mean, that's a little bit of speculation there, but still really interesting to be able to see. Now, this is the Kaisa deck that ended up winning here, and really interesting to be able to see how this ended up going. Now, with that being said, the Cleave, of course, is going to be really interesting to see. The Retreat, normally in a lot of decks that I've been studying here, especially on the tournaments that we've been able to have, has only had necessarily one Retreat, but especially against the Lee Sin, or not the Lee Sin, the Master Yi, that was a really big difference maker, especially with something like Charm that was able to go ahead and grab the Kaisa, move it over into the battlefield that Master Yi was at, and that was going to be a really big wall that they weren't able to get over, but instead the Retreat was able to come in, get the Kaisa back into hand so that it could go back out the following turn as a ready character and go ahead and take another battlefield to be able to get another card draw. There's a lot of really good responses here, really good card draw consistency, also trying to match the aggro type of field, and then just having a ton of removal. Now, Singularity is going to be one of the best cards, especially going against Master Yi deck. The biggest thing is that you're trying to basically have a better card draw than Master Yi in this case, because both are able to generate a lot with the card effects that they have. And so, rightfully so, this is going to be one of the biggest things. And even Smokescreen is going to be a pretty big deciding factor here as you go ahead and dive in, because, yeah, you're just going to be able to -4 might from units, and that's going to be really devastating, especially when they are relying so much on trying to get over that. So, really interesting stuff to be able to see here, and really fun to see. Now, Spirit Mother is going to be, or Sprite Mother is going to be a really good card in this case. Again, going more on the aggro front, being able to even match back what Victor might be throwing at them. Victor's going to always be a very tough matchup sometimes against Kaisa, because you need to almost outrace their aggro and hope that they don't necessarily have the card draw. You might be able to take a battlefield as a Kaisa. That's great. But when they have the hidden card, they'll just go ahead and show Hidden Blade, hack their one thing, and be able to draw 2 cards off of that. And there's not necessarily a whole lot that you can do about it, because they're going to just be able to draw the 2 cards and get those answers. Now, one thing that I am going to say is really interesting is the Icathian Rain, because that'll be able to be mained in the deck. And again, if you're going against Master Yi and whatnot, you're going to be able to go ahead and just devastate the board at that point. Kaisa's ability as the legend is going to be able to help you not have to recycle nearly as much, and that can make a big difference as well. And just a lot of really good answers on trying to get board control, especially when the 2 things that you are going to be seeing is a lot of Victor and a lot of Master Yi. So great job right there as the competitor. And then rightfully so, we have the winner of the Master Yi tournament as well. And so with that being said, these side decks are also going to be a pretty big deciding factor. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how this ends up going. Now, with this very simplified deck in this case, you almost want to even Master Yi probably has one of the better windows here that you need to learn this deck. He is rather straightforward. Go ahead and, put a unit into a battlefield and get there to the best of your ability. You're going to be relying a lot on the Snapvine to be able to go ahead and take out those threats once battlefields are taken, and then you have the units to be able to move in and take it, because once you take it, it can be very easy to hold. And then, of course, you want to maintain that card draw. You want to keep generating things. So you, as the other players, want to try to make sure that they can stop getting that card draw. But the problem is, if it's not the units that are drawing the cards or the abilities or, the reactions and things of that nature that are drawing the cards, it could very well be the battlefields that are able to do so. So you got to be a little bit careful about how you go about that because it's a juggling act in that case. And so really good job here. Now, unfortunately, with the Master Yi player, he did kind of get locked down a little bit in the final game with the Protector, and that is a little bit difficult to have to deal with in that case, and rightfully so. That can be so tough to try to go through and see how you're going to be able to do this. But, I mean, still, great play. Sabotage is going to be a really great card for the Master Yi. Also, just being able to protect and stop any and all damage coming from Kaisa in this case. I would almost probably even up that from just even having 2 in the sideboard. I would even go up to 3 because Kaisa can be one of the toughest matchups for you. And if you can just stop any abilities from spells or units, cool, then you're shut down just as a whole in this case. And that can be a very big difference maker here. And so I'm going to be curious to see how this continues to develop. But with this finals match, it was very interesting to see. Now, especially with the beginning of this game, this is going to be a back and forth. And the biggest thing with this being the finals is that, how are you going to be able to go and counter your opponent's responses? Because you are going to be having a lot of removal on the Kaisa side with spells and abilities, but also on the Master Yi side, you're going to have a lot of effects that are going to then up the might of those units. And so not only trying to have these responses, but also trying to get things maneuvered around so that you're not necessarily lacking on the card draw, but still able to do so. And I mean, you're seeing right here that taking the other battlefield with the Pit Rookie is going to be really helping, but you're still giving the Kaisa a big advantage here. And this is going to be one of the biggest things as well, is I'm wondering how big of an impact this game is having necessarily on the fact of the Kaisa being able to go first. And if that was almost more of a deciding factor on Kaisa taking this. And rightfully so. Yes, Kaisa still had some really great removal and really good responses. We'll see some exchanges here as the game continues to develop in this case. But even still, you got to just be very careful about, going first in this case, because having that kind of advantage to be able to start taking battlefields, getting those early points, especially against a Master Yi, can be a really big difference maker here. And so you're taking a look at his hand right now. Really good hand. Some good responses. The Protector is going to be a really good one, though. You do want that later in the late game. And even still, if you're recycling a little bit too much, you can find that you are in a bit of an issue there on trying to get over that. And so I'm going to be curious to see how this will continue to go between these two players. It is currently 2-2 in game 1 in this case. And of course, the series only went to a total of 2 games. So the Kaisa, of course, was winning both here. And so, again, the beginning of this game is going back and forth, but you see at this point a lot of stuff is going to be happening here, especially with having Master Yi come in super early. So that's going to be one of the biggest warning signs, at least, because as a Kaisa player, you're going to be seeing that now I have pretty much everything responded to. Master Yi is tapped out, so he's not going to be able to buff anything up. So if I am able to go ahead and take care of any of the units on the board, then I should be able to do so. And so that's going to be tricky, though, because especially with the face down card, there's not necessarily a whole lot of cards that Master Yi is going to be able to have. But still, the Hourglass is able to be hidden and also activated at this time. And so it's going to be really interesting to see once the spell does get activated, if they do play something like the, here comes the Acathian Rain. Again, that's going to be really good on trying to clear the board. It is a pretty high cost being able to do so, but he only does need to recycle 2 in this case, but still rightfully so. That is a lot to try to get down. 7 and 2. So now, of course, you got to be very careful about how things are declared as well in this case. And so, but you just need to try to clear out the battlefield. So the Hourglass is going to be activated in response to this. So the Master Yi then will go ahead and go back to the base in this case and able to fight another day. Now, of course, with that as well, if there are any other responses at this point, then Master Yi would, of course, then be able to be taken out. But a lot of the runes have been spent, all but one. But still being able to go ahead and take both, going up to 4 points total for Foxad is going to be a really great situation for him to find himself in. Now, Master Yi still has the ability to go ahead and try to maybe even get ganking going. If there also is a charm that is able to be had in hand, there's a lot of things that can happen here. And so you're almost just waiting and reacting here. One untapped rune on Foxad's side. And so this is going to be an interesting turn for the Master Yi because he really needs to start making some impact going back and forth. He will be able to at least take a battlefield at this point. Does have a charm in hand, and that's going to be a pretty big factor, but still is going to be opting to going to the snap vine here in this case because that's going to be a little bit of protection on getting things removed. Not going to be able to go ahead and worry about maybe a spell like Hextech Ray coming in to deal 3 damage to the Master Yi, or even, maybe a little bit more in this case. So interesting stuff. Darius in hand, and with Thousand Tail Watcher, that is going to be pretty good. Try to get things going. A lot of runes to be able to utilize to get things going here. So I'm going to be curious to see how all of this could potentially unravel as things move, and a lot of gameplay left still to be had. And so 4-4 right now. And I mean, here's the biggest thing too against Master Yi is going to be the Singularity is going to be such a great response here, dealing 6 damage, because especially at this point, and the amount of runes, 2 runes left untapped for the other player to be able to use, he's only going to be able to maybe have one response to try to save him in this case, because dealing 6 damage to both units anywhere on the board will be a good response to be had. Cannot be countered by, Defy in this case because the cost is too high. So, rightfully so, it looks like he is going to go ahead and buff up the Master Yi in this case, draw a card off of that as well. But at this point, Master Yi is completely tapped out as the player, and so no other responses are able to be had. The damage is still going to be on the Master Yi as well, with the buff being up there. So any additional push might still be able to be enough to go ahead, or another spell response would then remove Master Yi as well, and it looks like that is exactly what's going to be happening here. Now, of course, using this card is still going to be a little bit painful in this case. That's going to be a lot recycled, and that's going to be dealing 6 in this case, so unfortunately not going to be able to use that when they go ahead and have additional cards in the opponent's base. So still a really great response, being able to take this battlefield. Not necessarily a lot that can come in ready. Maybe another Snapvine you might be watching, but Foxsat is in a really good position right now to be able to get some good responses going. And so I'm going to be curious to see how this will continue to develop in this game 1. Right now, Kaisa is looking really good, and we'll see how many more they're able to do. So, with that being said, we do have a pit rookie that will be coming out. Now, that'll be a cost of 2. Trying to build up the board state again, and so that's going to just be a build up board and pass 2 response, or 3 runes remain in this case to try to respond to. And we'll see what is able to happen at this point. So a lot of game to be had left, but still going to be withdrawing back, rightfully so, 6-4. You almost want to bring it back. Say, okay, if you do have any responses, my next turn I am going to be making a rather big push, and we'll see how this ends up going. And so, I mean, bringing it back, that's again a whole different dynamic now that is going to be happening with the battlefield being out in this game. A whole different decision making to be had than compared to other card games. So really fun stuff to be able to see here as well, and to see also if this is going to be enough to get things going. So I'm excited to see how this is going to go, what we are going to be able to do here, and how everything is going to continue to unravel with this. And so a lot of interesting situations here, and especially with Thousand Tail Watcher, that's going to be really good right now as well. Able to be coming in spent, but the next turn, that's going to be a lot of attack that's going to be able to come in to the battlefield. And so what else could they have in hand that could help push to that final 7 and 8 points? Time will tell. Usually, Thousand Tail Watcher is that final choice to go ahead and get your opponent -3, and especially against Master Yi, that's a really great option to be able to have. And so, I mean, sitting pretty 3 cards in hand for Foxsat in this case. A lot of cards in hand for the Master Yi player, but not necessarily what you want to see. You're still kind of hoping that you're going to be able to go ahead and get some defenses up, get some things going, but not necessarily able to do so. The Protector are doing rather good, but not necessarily something to build up your battlefield in this case. And so you're going to be finding yourself in a very difficult situation. And so I'm going to be curious to see, and 1,000 Tail Watchers almost played out of desperation, just putting an 8 body out onto the field. But it's like at the same time, if Foxsat is able to go ahead and take both positions here, then that's going to be something worth having here. Now, of course, we're still going to be able to pump up the units here and then go ahead and potentially play Charm at this point. But still, we're going to be seeing the 1 be taken over in this case. And that will be putting them at 7. And then also a Darius coming out. And that second card played for turn with a Cleave is going to be pumping it up to 10 might with that. And that is going to be game number 1. So, I mean, just a really great job. For those of you guys who don't know, the Darius is going to be a great play because when you play your second card for the turn, it goes ahead and readies up and gets +2 might. And so then also playing the Cleave adds Assault +3. And that is one of the best situations that you can have to go ahead and get over any buffs that Master Yi might be able to have. And so in that case, it just seems like that as a whole, the other player just ended up not necessarily getting a lot of units that he needed to be able to get out onto the field, and the Kaisa managed to have the other answers. Now, of course, side decking is going to be a really big deal, and you saw right there what side deck, or what cards were side decked in for the Master Yi player. And so is this going to be going better at this point, especially going first? Toro having in the starting hand is going to be one of the best starts that you can have here. And so really curious to be able to see how this will continue to go and develop. But it looks like at this point, 3 cards in hand, and that is going to be an auto pass in this case. So a little scary to be able to have, sometimes you do want to get that unit out, but still we're going to see a Hex Tech Ray that is going to be going out. Again, the Kaisa ability, being able to stop the need to recycle a unit. Such a great ability because, man, if you can keep up the ramp needed to be able to play bigger and better units in this case, then you're good to do so. And you see a Defy in hand, which go ahead and stop the Hex Tech Ray from being able to deal the 3 damage. Do you want that 1 battle point? Because, I mean, the Defy here is going to be absolutely crucial in this case. But it could be used at a different time as well. But opting to use it here, and the 1 point is going to be scored. And then also playing out another great unit, which can get +2 might when attacking or defending alone. That's really good, especially with Master Yi's ability. That can be a 6 might that is then used to go against each other. But then, of course, that will go ahead and take it out with ease in this case. So a unit of its own. The second card comes out, cost of 2. Be able to be used, 4 cards in hand, and we'll see how this response is going to be made. So again, the removal here is so crucial, but you've got to be able to have those responses to up the might of the Master Yi competitor here to be able to keep your units out onto the board. And if you're not able to do that, then Kaisa can almost just steamroll you, because as long as you're out of the battlefield, you're not able to necessarily use Master Yi's ability, and that could be a big difference maker here. And Foxsat is moving up now 2 points so far, and able to see maybe what they can do. And again, this is the hard part, because if you do end up seeing the Protector in hand, it can really just start bogging you down as a whole, and trying to make sure that you're not able to get things going. And so here we go with moving in, buffing up +2, so that is going to be 6-4 in that case, and that is going to be a conquer here. Foxsat putting the other unit into the trash, and then Blitzcrank is going to be coming in, grabbing the Kaisa and moving it into the battlefield. Master Yi's ability will not come into effect here because there are 2 units that are defending this battlefield, and even still the retreat is going to be coming out in that case. That is going to be channeling a rune, and then also allowing the Kaisa to go back into hand. And so that is going to be a big save right there as well. Also, thing to be noting is that the Blitzcrank will return to hand once this unit, or once the battlefield is held. And so it is able to go ahead and be utilized every turn, with that being said. So things to keep in mind with that, and rightfully so. So A lot of cards in hand for the Kaisa as well. So both players have been able to do a pretty good job with that. And so we'll see how this is going to be able to continue to unravel between these two. And so with that being said, this is going to be a really big deciding factor here. Now, of course, the one battlefield is going to be a little bit difficult to try to get into here. But the Darius, again, is going to be a pretty big clutch maker here. Another 3 runes that you can potentially use. Stupefy to -1 Blitzcrank. That's going to be readying the Darius, also drawing a card. Really helpful right there. That's going to be +2, so it's going to be 7. And, again, the other unit is not going to be getting the +2 because it's not defending alone. So Blitzcrank is almost kind of shutting down. And this is why the debate on how good Blitzcrank is in these types of situations in the Master Yi deck, it really does a lot better job when going again, or when being utilized in like an Ari deck, for example, just because of the fact that you don't lock yourself out of the Master Yi ability or out of his other unit's ability, which would have had +2 might if it was defending alone. And that could have been a really big difference maker as well for that situation. But Blitzcrank still, in and of itself, is still a really good card at this point. First and foremost, too, I gotta say, I absolutely love what Riot has been able to do with these graphics, with this stage that they've been able to make. And we'll see the champion stage when the winner is able to be crowned in this case. Really great stuff to be able to see as well. And so here we go. We're seeing what is going to be down here for these competitors. And again, another card in hand. And right now it is 4-3, but also with the Master Yi being out onto the battlefield, the Thousand Tail Watcher is going to be -3 from that. So now it's going to be a 3 might with Master Yi ability going up to 5. But even still, tapped out in this case, there's not going to be necessarily anything that the Master Yi is going to be able to do in this case. And that is going to be an immediate destruction and a 7 might that is going to be in the battlefield for Foxat. So really good job right there on being able to take that. And again, reading out the field, being able to see your opponent is tapped out, that is going to be a big difference maker, because right now there's not necessarily a whole lot that the Master Yi player can be able to do. And he's finding himself falling quickly behind, because especially the Protector going out is going to be great, but still, the Thousand Tail Watcher is still going to be able to go ahead and get another point, going up to 6 in this point, and 6-3 is a huge deficit. And then again, with Kaisa, you're able to go ahead and defend the battlefield at this point too, which is a big difference maker, whereas Master Yi really synergizes with just holding 1. And here comes the Icathian Rain as well, immediately taking out the unit, and that is going to pretty much summarize everything that is going to be happening here. Having the Protector on, there is not necessarily a whole lot that can be had. The Protector is going to be changed out for a Poro and a Pit Rookie in this case, and that will at least be able to buff, but still going up to 7. Foxat is in a really good position here. A lot of cards in hand. Being able to draw an additional card, holding the battlefield as well. A lot of really good stuff there. And anything that can go ahead and be readied up, go ahead and take the other battlefield. And there we go, able to take it and get the 8th point and become a champion at this regionals. Just really good job from this Kaisa player. Was able to have the answers, and unfortunately, the Master Yi player just wasn't necessarily able to get those types of responses that we needed here. And an absolutely great job from this Kaisa player, and why it is such a deck to be, almost regarded as the number one, the number one champion in this current meta. Now, of course, you can argue multiple ways, but I mean, look at this stage right here. The first regional champion crowned, and the Misfortune card that is being awarded to the winner. 2 days of competition. Really great job and able to see that. So again, this was a really exciting regionals, guys. I highly recommend, especially watching like emo games and the things of that nature, that we're able to do just a really good job at getting that stuff. Really great gameplay to see there. Guys, this is an exciting time. We are at the very cusp and the very beginning of an exciting new TCG, and we are at the forefront of getting into it. So really exciting stuff to be able to see there, and I can't wait to see how this game takes the world by storm when it is released in October. But until then, we'll see how it ends up going. So what decks are you most excited to play, and who do you think will go ahead and take the top spot as a legend. Ice very well could be the one to be able to do so. But until next time, guys, have a good one.